All right, welcome to the tavern. Obviously, we're not sitting in the tavern like we normally are. We're sitting in the House Chamber of Legislative Hall at the Patriot Academy campus, and we have two special guests with us. We're actually doing a dual podcast. We're broadcasting together today in the tavern from Patriot Academy and then the Texas Examiner with John and Robert. So you guys introduce yourself and start your podcast while we're starting our podcast.
Well, Rick, thank you very much for having us out on such short notice. My name is John Tipton. I am the co-host of the Texas Examiner. We are a podcast that focuses on micro-focuses on quality of life issues, not only in Kendall County, but the state of Texas in general. And this is my awesome co-host, Robert Sines.
Hi, folks. Welcome to the Texas Examiner. And again, we're excited today about a guest that has been in our backyard, and we didn't even know about this. It's a facility and operation you have here.
Thank you.
Rick. So
Thank you. Well, we usually start the tavern with a toast. So welcome to the tavern, guys.
Why
That's
does this
pretty good.
remind- not to make this awkward, but why does this remind me of when Barack Obama sat with somebody?
It's better though. And I don't even know what flavor are we doing here? Does anybody know whoever got us the coffee? Is this light, medium, roast? Yeah, don't know. Okay, anyways, just good Patriot.
Good coffee. And this is coffee that you.
I'm a bit of a coffee snob. Like now, on one hand, I'm a caffeine addict, so I'll take it anyway and get it if I have to. But at the same time, I love good coffee. So when we created Patriot Brew, we literally tested beans from all over the world and flavors and everything else. So we went through a lot, and then we wrote up what I was showing you in the coffee shop. Basically constitutional language about coffee because we like to have fun while we.
Do you sell this online?
We do. Yeah, you can get it at patriotbrew.com. Thanks for the commercial.
Shameless plug.
Yeah. Now, if we can get patriotbrew.com to just sponsor us, that'd be a whole lot better. You know, it's ours though, so they can't. They don't. Well, anyway, let's talk about how we met because this is like an online dating game in a way.
Right. So very fortuitous. First of all, we'll back up a little bit. The Texas Examiner, Robert and I, we're not polar opposites, but we don't agree on everything. And it's a show about bringing everybody together to try to get along, right? We want to not just to go along to get along, but we actually want to work and have some constructive discourse as we're talking about the issues that are important to Kendall County and to Texas.
And that's very popular with us because, like I was telling you guys, it's either civil discourse or civil war. We don't want civil war. We want to have civil discourse even with the people that we disagree with.
100%. And if we can't sit and disagree and get up from that table, shake each other's hands, pat each other on the back, maybe even have dinner later, whatever that case may be.
Or maybe do a kick on the way. That's
on the way out.
No.
But at least we're having that civil discourse,
right.
which will further us down the road towards whichever end that we're trying to
That's
get.
right.
So with that in mind, we are the watchdogs of Kendall County. We like to make sure that we're looking out for property rights, for no new taxes, for the things that are important for me as a conservative that we want to look out to make sure nobody's taking advantage of or trying to sneak something underneath the rug or underneath the table, which, believe it or not, happens quite often. I'm sure you've run into that in your.
And by the way, they defeated a property tax. I found this out just a few minutes ago. So they stopped a new property tax from happening. As soon as they told me that, I'm like, I think I'm going to be friends with these guys. And I told them about me trying to end all property taxes in Texas 25 years ago. So anyway, that was a good way to start in the back of the room. Anyways.
So about I guess it was about this time last week, I'm looking online, whatever, or actually I'm looking at the agenda item for Kendall County Commissioners Court. And I'm reading through there and I finally get to agenda item number 27 because everything before that is just a whole bunch of pay your bills. And so finally we get to the agenda item and I'm reading this. Somebody wants to incorporate in Kendall County and there was no information about it. So I go into the documents, the supporting documents online and look for anything that identifies who this individual is, what entity is doing it, where are they getting funded, why, all the 5 W's, what is going on here? Because we didn't know anything about it. Not that we have to know anything about it, but sure would have been nice to know or have a name attached to any of those supporting documents in the back.
And we're playing the parade of horrors. We're trying to guess, okay, which little neighborhood or town around Kendall County is trying to do this, right? We're all kind of playing the guessing game. And then John did a little more digging.
So I'm assuming most of y'all aren't from Kendall County. Some of y'all are transplants and have graced us with your presence. Thank you very much for that, because I think you're here for a very good reason. But since you're here, let me give you a little bit of background on Kendall County. We're very, very protective of our property and our property rights, our water rights, and taxes. So when somebody comes in to start messing with our property or somebody else's property, the hair stands up.
Knee-jerk reaction is going to be, wait a minute, we got to make sure that our rights aren't going to be violated by this, whatever thing is being created.
Knee-jerk or by habit, one or the other, hook or crook. Yes, we want to make sure that whoever's in our backyard, we want to know who they are. And so I did my research, and I'm a private investigator on the side. And so I felt like I did a pretty good job trying to dig this up, ask the right questions of the right people. Still could not get an answer to what I was looking for.
We even contacted some of our county commissioners who weren't very forthcoming with information at the time.
Yeah, our commissioners basically told us that everything passed legal.
That's all they said.
Okay, it passed legal, but who is behind this? So in the interest of time, we're like, okay, nobody's giving us any straight answers. The only way we're going to get an answer is if we publish. If we go out and we publish and we raise the question of who could this be? It just so happens the timing wasn't probably the best, because we have been going through a season here in Kendall County where there is an 1,100 rooftop home developer trying to build some homes in this general vicinity. So the first thing that runs into somebody's mind is, could those two be connected? Could somebody be trying to do an end run? Because Kendall County's actually given, the stiff arm, the Comfort residents have given the stiff arm to this this builder. And so we didn't know if that was happening. Now, when we wrote the article was written in a way where you have to actually read it and do some reading comprehension to understand what we're trying to say. Some folks could not make the leap between, hey, it's in the same area, and they started linking them together. So this is how we became acquainted, was because it was hey, we have nothing to do with that entity. We're our own separate entity. And yet here we are on the other side going, okay, where's the paperwork? We wanted to see, and we wanted to meet, and we wanted to know who was going on, because we have a responsibility to our constituents or our citizens to provide them with facts. And at the time, we didn't have any facts.
So just out of curiosity, because that first post that you had did have our name in it, so it did say Patriot Academy.
Right.
Did you go watch any of the videos that we've put out to the world for the last month, telling everybody exactly what we were doing when you were doing your investigation?
That I did not do. No.
We did after you posted that. And again, we learned about the Patriot Academy. I lived here 26 years, never heard of the Patriot Academy. And so, and as I was telling you, Rick, offline a little bit, when you start reading it and considering the temperature right now in the country, the division between progressives, liberals, and ultra conservatives, it started making some people nervous. Like, we were talking to them about it, and a lot of our friends and followers were saying, well, the Patriot Academy, and they actually shoot guns there and they talk about the Constitution. So you can imagine how people start jumping to conclusions.
Yeah. And I think here's the key point here is we're going to be neighbors for a long time. I plan to die here, hopefully not for another 50 years, but this is where Carrie and I plan to finish our life and do this. And so we're going to be neighbors and hopefully friends for a long time. So the best way to build on that and us have a good relationship is to clear the air on how this happened. Because I'll be honest with you, it caused us a lot of pain. There were a ton of people that all of a sudden were against us that knew, nothing about us, but they thought we were now this 1,100 home development, because the initial post actually said that. It made it sound like we were literally the same group. So I think what I heard from you, and maybe I'm just asking for this, was that an apology for not investigating it further?
I think
not.
And actually putting out there what became a very false impression, and even showing a map that was literally making it look like we were incorporating half of Kendall County.
In all fairness, the map showed an area north of Comfort.
That was huge and right next to Comfort. Yeah.
And it could be that.
Yeah.
We didn't know that because none of the documentation that should have been provided within the supporting documents was in the supporting.
Well, technically, there didn't have to be even a commissioner's court meeting here.
No,
like, technically, none of this had to be public.
Could have done it.
It really only affects the people that live here. It doesn't matter to the rest of the county. The county judge could have signed it and we'd be having the elections and be done. What I'm saying is, as an examiner organization and as an investigator, don't you think you should have watched some of my videos and investigated what we were doing? And can you at least apologize for that so we can get a fresh start here?
What I can acquiesce to is that, yes, I could have gone and looked at your videos, but I didn't know they existed. The first time I ever heard Patriot Academy was the day. And actually it was after I did the initial publication. That was an edit to that one, because the first one didn't have you mentioned at all. And the second one actually showed a map with the Patriot Academy inside the map. I think that's where the confusion came in, is from that map, not necessarily.
You could ask Grok.
Right?
Or,
again, and all the.
I'm trying to get a good fresh start here, man. I'll apologize.
We're getting there.
Okay, all right.
Wait. He's going to apologize, John. Let him apologize.
For all the terrible things I said about you when I read your erroneous information. I apologize.
I maintain it still wasn't erroneous. We still didn't have all the facts, and we were waiting to get more.
Wait. You said You literally said in the first post that we were an 1,100 home development.
And not you. I said that if you read it again, it says there is a proposed 1,100
Yeah.
development.
And
But
you
didn't
lumped
have-
it all in with no distinction
not-
between the two.
Did not have.
So you're
any-
still not going to apologize
I will
for
apologize
creating a
for-
false impression.
I will apologize for confusion, but the facts are the facts. We didn't have all the facts. We put out what we had.
But they were available to you as an
No,
investigator.
they were not.
How can you say they're not available whenever they're literally out there on Facebook, X, YouTube, PatriotAcademy.com? They're all available. So as soon as you look up PatriotAcademy.com, you can very easily
Sure.
watch the videos that,
Sure.
I mean, are right on the, you're not like you had to dig for them. It's like, here's day 1 of becoming a city, Constitution City. Here's day 2 of becoming a city. You could have watched those and you'd have learned everything in 1 minute clip.
And it's just like, how did we know that it was Patriot Academy? It's like the name gave it away, right? So once we figured out what was going on, we talked to our county commissioners. They weren't giving us any information. We went with what we knew in order to
Right.
get the information out.
And-
There was nothing underhanded. There was nothing designed to cause any
No,
kind of.
I respect
or
that.
trouble.
All I'm asking
And I
for,
will apologize. I will apologize for what has happened as a
Okay.
result.
fair enough. I'll take it.
Okay, I feel like I'm in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
So okay, now that we got that, we got that out of the way. What's unfortunate though, Rick, is that we reached out to our county commissioners. It was their agenda, right?
Yeah.
So we figured they'll clear it up for us. And when it was an enigma, and so you can see how that.
Yeah. And it's the first time they've dealt with it, right? So to be fair to them, some of whom I agree with, some of whom I don't, they've never had to deal with this before. This is the first time a city's been incorporated while they've been commissioners. In fact, I don't know when the last one in Kendall County was. I know
think ever.
Elon Musk did the Starbase just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
There's usually about one a year that this happens, but for them, it's new. So to fairness to the commissioners and the county judge, they were trying to figure this out, and they may not have had answers for it to get. All they knew was we met the requirements statutorily. They got to sign the order and let our people vote when it comes in November. And there was no requirement of what they should release. And here's what I was going to apologize for. We should have done like a letter to all of our neighbors within a mile and said, hey, come do an open house. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it. I just thought everybody's online. They're watching what we're doing. And if they're close by, they know the Patriot Academy exists here, and we're keeping them informed through that. So I should have done something that was a little bit more, they definitely got it in the mailbox, and then there probably would have been
But the beautiful thing is we're here.
Yeah.
And
now we get to start fresh.
well,
Yeah.
yes. And I think our post, it really started a hornet's nest for sure, but it was a blessing in disguise for you. So you're welcome.
Well, now we got free advertising from all the people that hate us are doing articles that are calling us Christian nationalists, and that we're used to that. But it's free advertising.
But the people that love you too. Interestingly enough, some of you folks may not know, as we pulled up to the gate, it was also kind of mysterious. We pulled into the gate and there's no guard there. It's just a gate.
Yeah.
And so we waited there for you.
I was going to station 10 guys with AR-15s.
Well,
just so that you guys would pull up and go.
So as we're parked,
Whoa!
as we're parked there, another vehicle pulls in behind us, and then a second one, and then I guess the second one let us in, or the third one, I'm sorry, and the second guy ends up being someone from Fredericksburg that I guess
wanted to sign up for a class.
saw the article and wants to sign up for the class.
Free advertising. It works.
So so we get this this guy comes in, and I guess you sign somebody up.
Yeah.
You're welcome for that too.
And you know how this works because you worked in Congress.
Yes.
So whenever I was in the House and I'd get negative press. The first time that happened to me,
press
I
is
was like,
good press.
exactly. This
Yes.
guy comes over to me, kneels by my desk, and he goes, Rick, as long as they spell your name right, it's good press.
That's
I'm
right.
like, I don't even care if they spell my name right.
That's right.
But
That's
anyway.
right. But also, let's give credit where credit's due. You have built an impressive facility out here, Rick, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears looks like it's gone into this, and it's growing. So it's a legitimate place. It's not what some of the critics
Right.
are thinking. I think that we're envisioning shipping containers out here,
Right.
And people shooting tents and shooting guns.
Right.
I mean, you are teaching about the Constitution. You do have a Bible-based or Christian-based
Yes.
foundation.
Just like those guys.
right? But I think the critics still, and I know
Yeah.
you probably answered this a million times, is they're concerned about all the firearms. Tell that.
Yeah, I became very, very passionate about self-defense. Back when I was in the legislature, you had cities suing gun manufacturers, blaming them for crime. This crazy tort theory that I always say, that means that I should sue the spoon manufacturer after Thanksgiving because I gained 10 pounds. Makes about as much sense, right? If you to sue the gun maker and blame them for crime, but they were doing that, and they were actually shutting down. There was like 3 gun manufacturers that went out of business at the time, and Andrew Cuomo was head of HUD, and He was leading it for Clinton, and then Houston and Dallas and all of them were jumping on it. So when I filed my bill to stop cities from suing gun manufacturers and not allow Texas cities to do that, Charlton Heston came and did an ad for me and all of that. And so it became for me, it's always the whole Constitution, but the Second Amendment, there was a guy named Joseph Story that was a really important founder that was on the Supreme Court for about 30 years. And he said that if you lose this one, if you lose the Second Amendment, he called it the palladium, the protector of all of our rights. If you lose the Second Amendment, you'll lose everything else because it offers a strong moral check against usurpation from government. So I was always about the Second Amendment from a esoteric kind of philosophical argument. But then when I went, as I was telling you guys, when I went through my first training, which I went for my son, I didn't go for me. I was like, I don't need this. And I take him because he's 16, and I freeze in the simulation. And I realized, wow, I'm not ready. And even in the first 2 hours of the class, they're teaching me this stuff about my firearm that I didn't even know what I didn't know. And so I became very passionate about people not just saying, Second Amendment, or I want my right to carry, but actually training so that they're responsible and they know how to defend themselves. And they're not as likely to have a negligent discharge or have an accident. And so that passion from about 2010, 2012 was when that was starting. That led to us trying to get as many friends and family trained as possible. And then realizing that there's not enough good training out there where people can actually, that have never touched a gun, come in on day one, and by the end of day 4, be competent and confident in being able to carry and defend themselves. So that's the reason for the firearms training. And it's interesting you asked that, because I've had big donors come to us because we've been doing the constitutional education for 25 years. And when we got so vocal about the Second Amendment part, which is a combination training, you do the firearms training, but you also do the intellectual training. And then they were like, oh man, you're going to look like a militia or you're whatever. It's going to just, and they were worried about giving to us. And I said, look, after the El Paso event with the Walmart, where the guy's able to walk around for 15 minutes and murder people before we're finally able to get law enforcement in there, or Uvalde, where, this guy's able to kill kids for, 77 minutes. After those kinds of things, I was like, I'm not apologizing to anybody anymore. We're going to train as many citizens on how to defend themselves as possible, because the more sheepdogs you have, the more armed, trained. It's not just a good guy with a gun that stops a bad guy with a gun. It's a trained good guy with a gun that stops a bad guy with a gun. The more of those guys and gals that you have out there, when that mass murder event begins, you can shut it down immediately. You can stop the threat, just like in Indiana, where that 22-year-old guy comes out of the bathroom with the AR and all the mags, and he's going to kill 100 people. And probably would have if that Elias kid had not stepped up. And in 15 seconds, he engaged the threat and stopped him. He saved no telling how many lives. We want to hear those stories over and over and over and over again. In fact, when Uvalde happened, same day in, I think it was Virginia. No, I think it was West Virginia, where Elias is from. There was a crazy guy comes to a party and going to shoot up the party. Sheepdog with a ponytail, which is what I call the ladies that are trained. He pulls her gun out of her purse and she stops the threat. And only the bad guy was killed and no innocent people. I want more of that. And that's why we do this.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Rick. So what about you have two messages here, obviously, or three, I guess. There's a biblical component, a religious component. There's also the Constitution, and then there's firearms. Of those three, is there one that's a priority, or could you rank them for?
Actually, it's all one. And here's what it is: teaching citizens how to live out their freedom. That's it. Inspiring citizens to understand why we're free and then live that freedom out. And so I don't want somebody to just exercise their freedom of speech and go off half cocked, and not know what they're talking about when they get up, or libel and slander and all that kind of stuff. I don't want somebody exercising their Second Amendment right, going off half cocked, and then they end up killing an innocent person. So it's all about learning the Constitution. But there was a guy, I don't think I have him up on in any of our paintings up here. I should, but he was Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, the first Chief Justice, John Jay. And he said, every member of the state ought diligently to read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. That's why we teach the young people. But then he said, then they'll know their rights. They'll perceive when their rights have been violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. So I want people to be able to intellectually and physically defend themselves and their family. You defend the Constitution by intellectually knowing what it is and how to vote, and if you're in office, how to govern. And you defend your family in the moment. The Second Amendment's meant to defend in the moment against a perpetrator, but also be prepared to defend against a tyrannical government. So we want to teach all of those things. And everything I just said has a biblical foundation. That's why the Bible part of it's so important. These guys said, without the biblical foundation, this thing will fall apart. This guy over here, George Washington, when he's out there, he's resigning after winning the war. He could have been king, and He decides to resign and go home. King George said, no way. If he did that, he must be the greatest man that ever lived. And of course, he comes back and he's president. But when he finishes as president, and again, walks off stage, I mean, that's why I have that up there. Because when these people come here, or when kids come here and learn, I want them to be servant leaders, not have to be kicked off the stage.
It's important to know. I don't know if our cameras are catching it, John, but there's
full house of Patriots, right? You guys are all learning to live your freedom.
7,500 people in here. Yeah, yeah. So and these your guests are from all over
the country, and you know some of them are in legislatures. So we have a state senator from Nebraska here, a state rep from Montana. We have a state rep from West Virginia that's here to help train. And I'm sorry for filibustering. I'll turn it back to you guys. But what what GW said in his farewell address when he finally really did leave for good, he said, religion and morality are indispensable supports of political prosperity. In vain would that man claim the tribute of patriotism that would work to subvert these great pillars. What he's saying is he's watching the French Revolution take place, and the French are trying to get what we've got, but they did libertas without religion. They wanted libertas, but they didn't want religion. And so when they try to do it that way, it led to the guillotine and total chaos because there's no plumb line. There's no right and wrong. What Washington was saying was, well, why didn't it work for us but not for them? Right here. These are the two pillars that they're missing, religion and morality. And it's not that we would never want to make anybody convert at the sword. That's not what Christians do. That's not true Christianity. We would never want to make everybody adhere to our religion. But we absolutely would want to remind everybody what the ingredients are that produce free enterprise and freedom. And that's why we teach the Bible and the Constitution and fire.
Thank you.
Let's do a U-turn and kind of go back to where we were when we first started. We've settled the disagreement.
In the past, man. We're all buddies now.
So I think what our viewers and what our listeners, so what kind of neighbor are you going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully a great one. Of course, good neighbors, good fences make good neighbors, I guess. But, we're going to be a place that becomes a crown jewel for Kendall County, a place that they can be proud of. When we build Independence Hall, it's going to be something people are going to come to experience and see from all over the nation, maybe all over the world. It's going to be a place that folks can send their kids to study and to even get college credit for some of the classes that we're going to offer here. It's going to be a place where we can host events and wonderful times for people to come together and celebrate, like July 4th next year, the 250th birthday of the nation. We hope to have 10,000 people out here enjoying the new Independence Hall, or at least the slab, if that's all we've got built at the time, whatever part we're done with by next July. So it really is going to be something that the whole county gets to enjoy. And
the state probably, right?
Yeah, and I think Texas will be proud of it. In fact, Donald Trump would probably be proud of it if he knew that it was happening.
So tell us a little bit, or tell our viewers and followers, we're in this building right now in this facility. Tell us what this building is.
Yeah,
and then also kind of paint a picture of your whole academy so that we dispel the shipping containers and the tents. Okay.
We do have some shipping containers because they make for good storage. And
I have some too.
One of our Kendall County neighbors, I didn't even know this existed. We have a lot of stuff stored down here in these shipping containers. They are so freaking hot in the middle of summer, here in Texas. And one of our neighbors down here in Comfort, he's Rick, they make insulated ones that are, the freezer ones, old freezer ones. And he said, even if you don't have the air conditioner on it, it's going to be a world of difference. So,
but I want you to paint a picture of if you looked at it, and I know it's on your website also. You looked at this first person ever sees, because it's the first time we come here.
Right. Go to patriotacademy.com/campus, and you can actually watch the building of the campus. We have what we call the campus vlogs, and they started 2.5 years ago. Because when we bought this, there was nothing out here. It was literally nothing but a deer cabin up on the front of the property. And so you can watch in those vlogs. They're just like 8 or 10 minutes each, but it shows kind of the progression as we began to move dirt and started building things. And now we have 40 beautiful cottages and RV slots and all that, so people can come and stay from all over the nation. Most people, they can come and stay for a week, or they can stay for a month or a year, depends on how much study they're doing here. So we got the cottages, and then what we're sitting in is what we currently call Legislative Hall, and this is a mock-up of the Texas House. So this is literally an exact replica of the Texas dais, that when you watch the speaker up there, it's exactly like this one. We had some awesome Amish carpenters come in and built that thing just like the Texas House. And then we have 100 desks, so we can train 100 people at a time doing the legislative process. And we really pride ourselves on making our process exactly like the Texas legislature, so that when people go through our training, now they can sit down with their state rep or their state senator and actually have a real conversation, just like you were talking about, where that civil discourse can happen. Too often we just scream at our elected representatives. We get mad because they didn't pass something or they voted the wrong way. And there's a time for that probably, but if you can sit down with them and actually understand how like upstairs, I hadn't taken it all up there yet, but we got 6 committee rooms, and they do the full committee process and they do the House process. So this is Legislative Hall. We've got about almost 200,000 square feet of gun ranges. So we got a really nice rifle range, 3 really nice handgun ranges, and then 2 simulator bays. And all of our law enforcement from the area come here to train. So they use our ranges for the Kendall County Sheriff's Department. The Department of Public Safety comes here. Soon the Llano County Sheriff's bringing his guys out, and the Gillespie County guys. So that's something we really pride ourselves on, about being a good neighbor. We want to make sure that they know we're not, because I get it. You hear Patriot and you hear guns. You think, oh, no, it was
Bible,
crazy militia, whatever. We want them to know, hey, we're citizens. Yes, we are a militia under the definition of what these guys said a militia was, which is every man that can fire a rifle. So we're just good citizens. We're learning how to defend ourselves, and we want our law enforcement people to feel at home here as well. So eventually, though, as you mentioned up front, we'll be building Independence Hall and a lot of cool colonial buildings so that people can come here and do their college classes or do a Constitution class. All of the interior of Independence Hall has actually already been built. We had some wonderful friends up in Indiana, and this guy has a woodworking place there, and he brought in 100 of our people went out there, and he has all the guys that make the White House furniture and all kinds of cool stuff. And they did all the Windsor chairs, the president's chair, the drapes, the tablecloths, the chandeliers. I watched them do the glass. That was amazing. Anyway, so a lot of it's already been done. You just don't see it yet. So it's sort of like laying the infrastructure underground. Once Independence Hall goes up, everybody will be able to see it. But there's years of work going into it before it'll be there.
So again, we'll go back and do the U-turn again, go back to being a good neighbor. There are so many different things that municipalities can do under Texas and the Texas Municipal Code. I think what some of our viewers and some of our listeners would be concerned about, and I would be remiss if I didn't check this box asking this question, is what does the future look like? Is there annexation? Is there levying new taxes? How are you going to have your own police force? Are you going to have your own emergency services?
Good questions. We plan to annex the entire state of Texas. So I think you guys will like this. Part of what got me beat 25 years ago in the legislature was I had a package of bills that were to stop cities from being able to expand without the landowner's permission, and to stop the ETJ from being able to regulate your land because it's regulation without representation.
Right.
And so I believe in not having taxation without representation, and I also believe in not having regulation without representation. And so I had Hayes County and Gonzales and Hayes, Caldwell, and Gonzales counties back then, and Hayes County butts up to Austin, right? And the city of Austin literally had ETJ all the way into Hayes County. And so here my constituents have no say over crazy Austin, right? No say over what they're going to do. And yet they're, no way to vote for them, no way to have any influence, and yet they're regulating their land. So I tried to stop all that 25 years ago. And we actually got through the House, almost to the Senate, and then the Texas Municipal League got a few senators to kill it. I tell you that so that you know where I'm coming from and our philosophy that we teach here. We are not going to regulate outside. We're not, even though statutorily we're given a half-mile ETJ for the size city that we are, zero regulation on that ETJ. We don't even want it. We're going to do an interlocal agreement with the county commissioners where we make it very clear, no, you guys still have authority over that because they can vote for you. They can't vote for us. They can vote for a commissioner. So none of that's going to happen. We probably will do a sales tax within our 177.6 acres because we sell a lot of stuff in here, coffee shop and pro shop. And so we'd love for that sales tax to be able to help build roads and just help us build out the campus. What was the other thing you asked? We won't do a property tax for sure because I'm anti-property. Police and fire. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think so, but our director of training is named Aaron Marshall. You met him earlier, and I would love to be able to call him Marshall. I just think that'd be fun. So maybe just so that I can call him that. But we'll do, like I've already talked to the sheriff about, we'll do as soon as we get done in November, we'll do an interlocal agreement with them so that they're the law enforcement here. And maybe someday we'll do a local police as well, partly because I'd love to have a badge and go through the training so that I can carry in places I can't carry right now. But so I don't really know for the future on that, but the fire department definitely will, same thing.
Interlocals.
Yeah, we'll do interlocals with them. We're blessed to have really cool instructors here that have all that. A lot of them are former fire department in LA, and we got a great medical team and all of that. So it would be natural for them. And I've even learned about, some small cities do I can't remember what the term is, but the officers are fire and police. They get trained in both and they serve in both. So we may do something like that. I mentioned this in the commissioners hearing the other day, but one of the reasons we're doing this and that I'm looking forward to is the best way for our students and our staff to experience civics is to experience civics. So it's going to be really cool for our students to learn how city government works and learn how these interlocal agreements work. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be a really cool experiment for them. And then it's going to also be good for other people. We're big on self-government. We just think the better people are able to self-govern, the less government you need. We're not anti-government, we're pro-government. Back to the Bible, we think it's a God-created institution. If it's in its lane and within its proper jurisdiction, it's good for everybody. But when it gets out of its lane, it becomes a curse. It becomes actually bad for everybody. And so we want to find that proper balance of government and individual and answer the question, who decides? Most often the individual, but sometimes the community, and sometimes the state, and sometimes the federal government. And so it gives us a chance to teach that and talk about how self-government works. And we want this area to be able to govern itself.
So, John, the only people going to be able to vote for this are the people that live in this.
That's right. Inside the 177.6 acres
that belong to you,
that are registered to vote.
So it sounds likely that it'll pass.
Well, I hope so, because 91% of the registered voters actually signed the petition.
Okay.
If they signed it now, unless they, if they feel like I bombed this interview, they may change their mind and not vote for it.
9% were sleeping.
Yeah, they might have been, So
Okay.
I don't. So I obviously it's most likely it will pass, but it'll only be the people in the 177.6 that vote. And yes, I did have to shave a half acre in order to get to 177.6. Isn't that great though? 76?
Yeah, I like that.
So recently, there's been some articles being published. I don't know if you've read them in the past couple of days.
I love the free advertising.
And it's probably
It's usually with a 4-letter word on either side of my name, but that's okay.
nothing that you haven't addressed before. So just as I don't think I have the quote here right in front of me. Oh yeah, I do. How much time do we have?
Go for it, man. Unlimited. If y'all are having fun, we'll keep going. If y'all want to get back to doing your section, we'll quit.
And this founded by a failed Texas Supreme Court candidate and former Texas state rep.
Get crazy.
That was
My San Antonio. Yeah. Man,
what do we say to that?
Absolutely. I tell my kids here at Patriot Academy all the time, I'm really good at failure. Fail early, fail often, and you get to success. And so, yes, I ran for Supreme Court and barely lost. It was basically 1 vote per precinct across the state of Texas. I'm not bitter at all. No, I am so thankful I lost. It's like God sometimes will. It's the old Garth Brooks song, "Not answer prayers," right? Because I'd be bored to death sitting in a office reading briefs all day, and I would hate it. That's the senator. He might be coming tomorrow night. We'll see. Okay, a military veteran. It's a senator, and these are about half military veterans, half coaches. And so I was trying to get, anyway, where was I going with that? Yes. So yes, I lost my Supreme Court race. Okay. Call me a failed Supreme Court candidate. What was the other thing? Let's see. Bible. What was it? Let me see.
They're basically
4 language essentially is a far right. And so it's interesting. Far right. I wonder what that really means, right? Like compared to what? That's always what I always ask a reporter. If they say you're far right, I say compared to what? All of the things that we teach here and the positions that we teach are about 80% agreed to by the people across this country. In other words, freedom of conscience and the right to keep and bear arms and all these basic constitutional beliefs. So if that's far right, I guess the whole country's far right. It's interesting though, too, a lot of these labels, they used to work really well. Like they would cause people to, we don't have anything to do with them. Now it's like a neon sign advertising for us because most people have figured out that's what they use to try to destroy people. These might be my people. So most people that read that article that we want coming here to train, they're going to go, oh, that's our people. Let's go.
Yeah, we had a county commissioner in Kendall County that said publicly and called all his constituents snowflakes because they were questioning his expenses on the budget.
And a few other choice words. Snowflakes come here to melt.
So Rick, the application, if a student wants to apply, there's some questions.
Yeah.
And I was combing through some of them. And do those questions, are those questions meant to basically allow them entry like admission or exclude them if they answer incorrectly?
Well, the above. I mean, we want to make sure that when a student comes here, that they're not going to hate it. And so if they're coming here with, totally opposite views, like if they're anti-Bible, if they're anti-patriotism, if they're a woke leftist that hates America, they're going to be miserable here. We don't want them here and they don't want to be here, but they may not know it yet. So that's why we ask those questions. We want to make sure they at least have a foundation of loving their country and wanting to learn about the Constitution, and they're not opposed to learning about the biblical roots of the country. So it helps us identify if they're going to thrive here, just like any college would do, right? College asks those questions because they want to know who's going to do well on their campus when they actually get there. I do want to say one thing about one of the articles I read, because it talked about the tuition is normally to spend a whole year with us it's about a third of what a regular college would be. It's about 14,000. But the kids that are coming this year, we actually had a wonderful donor that stepped up and scholarshiped them. So we've got a bunch of students coming, and they're literally getting to come on a scholarship. And
these are kids from all over the country.
all over the country. Yeah.
And so I'm curious.
Except California, we don't allow them.
Are you serious?
No, I'm kidding. We actually have 2 or 3 kids.
I didn't think you were serious.
But their application process is much longer.
But all kidding aside, right? Have you ever had a student that says, for example, I'm non-denominational?
Sure.
Or I'm not sure if I want to answer that, but I still want to go to the academy.
And let me be clear, man. We got Protestant, Catholic, Mormon, you name it. I don't know that we've had a Muslim student, maybe, but I don't know if we have. Yeah.
You wouldn't exclude them if they wanted to come in?
Probably not, but I would be very clear about the fact that, hey, you're going to learn why America's built on Christian values, not Muslim values. And you're going to learn what's different about the Muslim religion and the Christian religion and the difference it creates in society. So if Islam dominates in a society, it leads to tyranny. Just every society where that's ever happened, that's what happens, because they end up with Sharia law. Whereas if the Christian philosophy dominates, you're going to end up with a free society where people treat their neighbors the way they want to be treated. Back to your question, what kind of neighbors are we going to be? Biblical neighbors. We're going to treat our neighbors the way we want to be treated. And hopefully they'll do the same. I don't know.
So in that same vein, you are actually, via the academy, have been accused of being Christian nationalist. How do you respond?
Well, my first question is, what does that mean? What do you guys think it means?
I'll tell you.
What did Crocs? Amen. Yes, that's true. That's what all these guys believe. There wasn't a single founding father that did not believe that your rights come from God, not government. And in fact, it's what makes us different from, for instance, the Soviet Union. In fact, Reagan gave a great speech on this back in the 80s where he said, look, you can find freedom of speech and all those things in the Russian Constitution. The difference is they say government gives you that. And in the American Declaration and Constitution, we're endowed by our... You sure it doesn't say Congress? You're not endowed by Congress? See, you bunch of Christian nationals. You actually think your freedom came from God. But I was so confused by that phrase for so long, because that's what the left does. They throw out pejoratives.
And that's a point earlier.
Yeah.
It's just one of those distracting labels that
But it conjures up the idea. I almost expected you to say this, but you didn't. I appreciate the fact that you said it that way. What it conjures up, the reason they created that phrase, when you heard it the first time, what'd you think? I thought that's someone that wants a theocracy. And that's what they're trying to get people to think. Oh, these people want a theocracy. They want to make everybody follow their view of the Bible. They want to make everybody go to their church or whatever it might be. And that's why they're smart, man. They created that perception.
But there are people.
I hear that, but this is what's interesting. People would say this to me and I'd say, look, I'm pretty darn involved in this movement. I mean, I know and work with and interview and spend time with virtually every major organization and leader in the conservative constitutional movement. I don't know a single person that wants a theocracy. I really don't. I don't know a single individual. I've never had anybody on my show. I've never spoken at a conference where somebody got up and said they wanted a theocracy or said anything that would be a theocracy, but that is definitely the perception. I'm sure they're out there. Believe me, there's right-wing and left-wing crazies in our nation because we got 350 million people here. I guarantee you there's people that want that, but they're not movement leaders. They're not even, and if they show up at one of our events, we don't know that they believe that. And the left's pretty good about that too. Like they'll show up at a Trump rally with, 100,000 people and they'll go find some nutcase and they'll interview them and they'll make it look like that's everybody there. But I'm glad you asked the question because it is definitely the pejorative that everybody throws out. And I said, 4 years ago when that started, that was when that phrase started being used. Every time I would say what I just said, I'd say, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And then finally that CNN reporter got on television and said, here's what Christian nationalists are. They believe their rights come from God, not government. Exactly what you just read. And it's like, wow, okay, well, I think Jefferson would like to have a word with this lady because, he's out here. We should bring her and have her sit next to Jefferson out here and read the Declaration of Independence because it is so clear that's what the American system's based on. We get our rights from God, not government, or from each other. Like, I don't confer freedom on you. You don't confer freedom on me. If that was the case, I could take it away. I could law the tiger and the shark. Whoever's strongest gets to determine what everybody's rights are. The whole reason America is different, the whole reason that group, when they gathered at Independence Hall in 1776, looked around the world and said, everybody's government says power comes from God to a king, and then the king gives it to the people. We don't like that. We're flipping that. Power and freedom comes from God to the people, and we set up government that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That line in the Declaration changed the world, and it's because we're not dependent on each other conferring our rights. God gives it to us. What we come together to do is to protect those rights. So governments are instituted among men, and that's what we teach here. The whole reason government exists is to protect your God-given rights.
So you hear the critics or people that think opposite to what you just said, Rick, is they say we should have separation of church and state. What do you tell people that say that?
Absolutely. First of all, I always ask them, do you know where that phrase comes from? And a lot of times they'll say it's in the Constitution. Say, well, let's get out the Constitution and look at it. Where in the Constitution? It's in the First Amendment. Okay, let's get out the First Amendment. What's the First Amendment say? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. No separation, no church, no state. It's not in there. It comes from a letter that Thomas Jefferson wrote when he was president of the United States on January 1st, 1802. And he's writing to the Danbury Baptist Association, responding to their concern, exactly what these people are asking. If we allow the Bible to influence things, well, will we become a single denomination? Will we become a theocracy? If government is allowed to say you have a freedom of religion, does that mean government can take it away? And Jefferson responded by saying, no, there's a wall of separation of church and state that keeps the state from getting involved in the church, but does not keep people of faith from being involved in the state. One-way wall is what he described. And that was perfectly understood in America for 150 years. In 1947, it changed. The case was called Everson, and a KKK guy by the name of Hugo Black was on the Supreme Court, and he wrote this decision where he flipped it by erasing the rest of the letter and only saying wall of separation of church and state. Every decision, not just Supreme Court, but every court decision up to that point had used Jefferson's letter to back up faith being involved in the state, actually to make the argument that we're making. And then he leaves all that out and just does those 8 words. And after that, 3,000 court cases quoted Hugo Black instead of quoting Jefferson and instead of quoting the actual Constitution.
When did this change? Because I've noticed this shift has occurred in the last administration.
Yeah, 3 years. Last 3 years.
Yeah. And so what changed?
Yeah, 47 is Everson, and then 62 is Ingle v. Vitale, which has no prayer in schools because of Everson. Mm-hmm. And then 63 is Abingdon v. Champaign v. Collette, no Bible in schools because of Everson. And then you get Stone v. Graham, no 10 Commandments in the schools. And then you get the Lemon case, and the Lemon case is what has been used for the last 40 years to prevent exercise of faith in the public square. What changed was Coach Kennedy. So Joe Kennedy up in Washington is the guy that would go out on the football field after the game by himself, just go out there and kneel at the football game and say, thanks God for nobody getting hurt, blah, blah, blah. And then the kids started coming around him and praying too. And the school said, you can't do that anymore. And he said, I have a right to, pray. I mean, just because I'm a coach or teacher doesn't take that away. And so anyway, he ends up in that lawsuit. It takes 9 years. And finally, 2022 or 2023, it gets to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, totally reverse Lemon. And it changed the last, 40, 50 years of Supreme Court decision to go back to what the founders actually intended, which is everybody gets to live out their faith. And back to your Muslim question, everybody gets to live out their faith. I don't care if you're atheist, if you're Mormon, if you're, Protestant, if you're Catholic, if you're Muslim, if you're Buddhist, if you're Hindu, you should be able to live out your faith. So if the kids in your school elect you to do the prayer at the football game and you want to pray a Muslim prayer, you should have the right to do that. If the kids in your school elect you to do the prayer and you want to do a Christian prayer, you ought to have the right to do that. And certainly if you're a teacher or pastor or coach or whatever, you should not give up your constitutional rights when you walk through the door. And that's what the founders believe. And now we're finally back to that. We went about 60 years without it, but now we got it back. Please don't advocate for the devil, but you can absolutely go the opposite view of where I am.
Let's walk this path just a minute. So 2 states in the past, within the past 2 to 3 years have both passed legislation stating that the 10 Commandments should be published and placed into the classroom.
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that with the Quran or any other?
Yeah, great question. Because America was not built on the Quran. Because our education system was not built on the Quran. So the whole reason is because, in fact, I keep wanting to point to the Declaration, but it's way up there. We can't see it to some of these guys.
There's going to be
we're getting the Declaration on that wall right there. Anyway, Benjamin Rush is up in that painting, and he's the father of the public school system under our Constitution. He said, I would rather teach Confucius or Muhammad or any of these other teachers than teach no religion at all. But in America, we have chosen to teach Christianity because it has the greatest positive impact on the culture. So the reason to do the 10 Commandments is because the founders agreed a republic, a constitutional republic, only works if you can self-govern. And the best self-government is the Bible. And so if you teach those principles, another guy, Noah Webster, we mostly know him for the dictionary, but he also is responsible in the Constitution for he wasn't at the Constitutional Convention, but told the other guys to do the clause in Article 1, Section 8 for the protection of patents and copyright and trademark, because he was a writer. Anyway, Noah Webster said that all the miseries and evils which men suffer from vice, crime, ambition, slavery, and war come from neglecting or despising the principles contained in the Bible. In other words, you get all the bad stuff if you don't teach the good stuff, and the good stuff comes from the Bible. And that's what the founders believed. So that's why the 10 Commandments is what should be in the schools, and why these legislators are right to do the 10 Commandments and not do the Quran or anything else. I mean, there's just a difference in what you get in society. And I mean, people don't like to talk about it, but you got to, if you look at what are we going to teach our kids in order to determine what our society is going to look like 20 years from now, because as Lincoln said, the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. If you teach Islam, then you're actually going to be teaching a philosophy that was founded by a pedophile, that was founded by people that I don't think that's what we want in our culture. If you want child marriage, if you want honor killings, if you want that kind of stuff, then absolutely go somewhere where they're teaching the Quran in school or hanging the, but the 10 Commandments, man, I want to live in a neighborhood where people say stealing's wrong. I want to live in a neighborhood where we say murder is wrong. I want to live in a neighborhood where we actually say honor your father and mother, actually have respect for your elders. That's good stuff, And if you want to live in a neighborhood where people treat their neighbors the way they want to be treated, you'll put the 10 Commandments in school.
Love thy neighbor.
Love thy neighbor, man. Absolutely. And it worked for us as a nation, right? It produced this great system. We took it all out. How's that working for us? Look what happened to the culture in terms of crime and all those things.
I just got one more question.
Yeah.
Rick, we'll let you get back to work. Rick,
this is work, brother. I love my work.
This is fun.
This is fun. I loved it.
We're not getting paid, though.
Yeah, he doesn't change based on this. I'm not getting paid much. I'll tell you, saw my truck.
Rick, I was watching some of your videos.
Yeah.
Great speaker, by the way. Great
Thank
orator.
you, man.
Yeah. And there was one that stuck with me where you said, and I'm not going to quote you exactly right, so please,
No
give
problem.
me some grace.
Lots of grace and mercy, brother.
That you said something about judging a nation by, are people coming here?
Yeah.
Or are they leaving?
Right.
I'm a retired border patrol chief, so I appreciate having strong borders, and I spend a career with people coming to this country, trying to manage the border. We've done a pretty good job recently of securing the border. But I'm also hearing a lot of people that are leaving now the country, and I hadn't heard that before. I don't know if
I haven't.
I have. I've heard.
I keep hearing people like Rosie O'Donnell promising to leave, but I just wish he would.
No, but there are many people that are scared, because they see change scares people.
I did see Ellen DeGeneres move. I've heard she might move back. Other than her, I don't know anybody.
I'm talking about the average Joes in Bernie, in Kendall County. I've met people that have left because they're fearful, and some of these are not undocumented immigrants. Some of these, I'm blessed with the ability to speak Spanish, and so
I learned it 426 days on Duolingo.
Well,
I'm
maybe
yeah,
I can come and teach you. But I'm seeing a lot of people that they're just scared, and of course the media doesn't help,
right,
with fear, but I've seen something that does concern me personally. I've seen more and more people leaving. I guess you haven't seen that, but do you think that people are still wanting to come to America like they did maybe 20 years ago?
Yeah. So where you got that from was my Country Boy test, and it's just a really simple test. If you want to know whether or not a nation's values are worth defending, you want to know whether or not a nation's great, the real test, not what you see on paper or what the politicians say. Are people trying to get in? Are they trying to get out?
So you said it much better than I did.
Well, it's just simple. It's just simple. And it is the ultimate test. That's why you don't see tunnels to get into North Korea, right? They're trying to get out. Right. And that's why it's called the American dream, not the North Korean dream or the Cuban dream. Right. So that was probably the video that you saw.
Yes.
And I'll tell you my philosophy on immigration. I think it ought to be 1,000 times harder to get in illegally and 1,000 times easier to come legally. I think we absolutely need people to come here and be a part of our culture if they want to come and assimilate in our nation, or they want to come and work part-time, work for a while and go home. That's fine. As long as we know who they are and we're able to monitor who's coming across our border, so we don't have 2 million gotaways where we have crime and all kinds of things happening out there that we don't, we know that has a negative effect. As far as people actually wanting to leave because we're taking criminals off the street, or because we're, telling people they have to come legally instead of illegally, I'd say leave. I'd say if because what I'm seeing right now, and actually what Trump's doing in Washington, D.C., for instance, 100% constitutional. Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 17 says that Congress is supposed to be the one that governs Washington, D.C. It's a very special place. It's not a state. It's not supposed to be a state, not in a state, all that good stuff. And so I think federalizing the police force there, and the police association president there is all for what President Trump doing, because he knows their hands are good tied, is a good thing. So I'm for, number one, getting certainly the thugs, right? We should all agree, if you came across illegally and you're a rapist, murderer, thug, criminal, cartel member, you ought to absolutely be sent away. I grew up in construction, man. A lot of people that, worked where I was and where I was working were here technically illegally. They came here to work and send money back home. And some of them became citizens and brought their families here, and they're wonderful contributing members of our society. I want those kind of people here. And so I think we've got to streamline how we open that door so those people can come and not be criminals. And so anyway, that's got to be fixed. But the first step had to be taken, which you know better than I do, had to be that you could actually control the border, not close it, but control it, and actually know who's coming in. And
You said something very interesting. I tried to take the mic from John. We agree on something that the country agrees on it, but we're not touching on it enough. And having worked in immigration, you're absolutely right. Strong enforcement. We also need to have a very
robust is the word I was about to throw in with you. Yeah.
Right. Legal immigration process. Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't.
Right.
We never have. So this is not about President Biden or President Trump, or it's just immigration in general.
And it's a nightmare for the people that want to come here.
Right.
It's
It's
so
not
difficult.
sexy. And I know people in Mexico that are successful business people that have been waiting decades to come.
Yeah.
And they're putting a lot of money in, but they can't because the process is so slow, so backed up.
Look at Riley Gaines. Watch her videos where her husband, I can't remember where he's from, some other country, but I mean, 2 years they've been trying to get.
Oh, yeah, even more. It's interesting. Before coming here, we interviewed a young man, Clayton Tucker, who was running for ag commissioner in Texas, young man. And I asked him the question about, if he does what he's going to do, we may have some labor issues. And I asked him, is he familiar with the Prosperity program? Which he wasn't, because that's from the 1950s. Yeah. But it was a program similar to what you're talking about, allowing legal people to come here. People come here legally temporarily. Now we have the technology to track them and monitor them, and we have employer sanctions. And then after they work a certain period of time, whether it's in agriculture or construction, they go back.
Yeah. And it was a huge revenue source.
It was a great program. The problem is, back in the 50s, we didn't have GPS and technology like we do today, track these people. So a lot of them kind of got lost in the system, and it failed.
Yeah.
But
by the way, shout out to Bruce Colley for telling me about how do you say it, Bracero? Yeah. He called me back about a year ago, and he goes, can you get this to Trump? He needs to know about this program. And I didn't know about it. He's the one that educated me on it.
It's a great program. But, you have something interesting that got me thinking. He said, well, Robert, he says, that sounds like a great concept. He says, but if we keep bringing people in here, even if they're coming in legally and they're working for a low wage or minimum wage, we're still not creating jobs for Americans. Mm. I thought that was funny coming from a Democrat, but it got me thinking, and I thought, well, okay, maybe he's right there. But then his counter was, he says, we bring him in here, we need to let him work for 4 or 5 years, and then they can get some legal status.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all for being to earn those things. Absolutely. Okay. As long as we know, as long as we can monitor, as long as you're coming in and we're limiting how many, all right, it's not just open to everybody. And then there'll be some market forces on that, right? Which I'm a big free market guy. If, for instance, we always say, well, people here won't do some of these jobs. Well, if they won't, then the pay is going to have to increase to where they will, or people are going to pay to come in to do that job.
Nobody wants to be podcasters.
Yeah,
like us.
We don't get paid enough for sure. But the market will eventually balance that out.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of common ground there to be found. I think the system got so bad that we had to just stop, clean house, start over, and let's bring some common sense to this thing, so that it makes sense for everybody, and not the politics of it based on what a party wants or doesn't want, but what's good for the country, right? What's going to be good for our nation.
Absolutely. Well,
I don't have anything else.
Man, well, this has been fun. You guys are great. You're good at this. Yes.
So I do want to say for our viewers and our listeners, put your pitchforks away. Now that we've had an opportunity to visit, I think the next step is going to be break bread at some point.
Amen. We should do an open house here. Y'all come, invite your viewers and your readers, and we'll do a little open house and let everybody come and
kind of you
break bread together.
That would be very kind of you. I appreciate that. I think, Kendall, you're going to find you've been here for a while. Kendall County is an awesome, great place to live, to work, to raise a family. And I got to say, I'm proud that
Thank you. Thanks for joining us in the tavern. One more toast.
Beer's getting warm.
To freedom and to Kendall County. How about that, huh?
Folks, thank you so much for following us here at the Texas Examiner. I'm Robert Sines. This is my co-host, John Tipton, and we're glad to have had a great time today with a wonderful guest and neighbor here in Kendall County with Rick Green here at the Patriot Academy.
Mayday Investigations. Truth is timeless. So is the grit it takes to uncover it. Blending traditional fieldwork with high-tech tools, Mayday Investigations digs deeper, because what you don't know can hurt you. Visit them at maydaypi.com